Good morning and welcome back to Sunday Storytime here on Gaming with ADHD, where today we are continuing our read-through of Star Wars Scoundrel's Luck, a solitaire adventure starring Han Solo. Now, if this is your first time here, go down below in the description. There's going to be a link back to the very first video that I did in the series. That way you can catch up and be where the rest of us are in today's story. Now, this is a choose-your-own-adventure style of story where we read through, and at certain points we will be presented with different choices that we have to make in order to advance the story or end it. So, what your responsibility as the viewer is to comment down below once the video is done and we've reached a decision point, and you're going to decide which direction we go next. Based on the comments and everybody's choices, I will advance according to that particular path. So, with that out of the way, don't forget, like the video if you enjoy it, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and let's get started. Now, in last week's episode, Han and the deserters from the Empire were crash landed on a planet, and there was an Imperial patrol coming to find them. So they hid, and a fight ensued, and they acquired a radio pack, which they then used to report in to try and throw the Imperials off the track. Now, the Imperial colonel that they were talking to wanted to know if there were casualties or fatalities. Basically, does he need to send somebody in to mop up? Now, the problem was that the Imperial colonel wanted prisoners, and obviously, Han and company don't want to be prisoners. So, let's see what happens. Based on the comments, you all decided that Han was going to report there were no fatalities. Let's see what happens. One casualty. Fatal. Activate the ID beacon and continue normal search patterns. Carry on. The colonel's screen blanks and Han whoops in triumph. They bought it! I think we need not worry about more Imperials for a day or two, Captain Sodara comments. The commander has no reason to suspect anything is amiss with this squad. Lieutenant Birdlow set a minimal picket and all other personnel are on burial detail. As you order, Birdlow responds. Chewbacca and I'll fix the Falcon so we can get off this snowball, Han says. We'll need some help later. My men are your men, Sodara responds diplomatically. After 30 minutes of work, Chewie reports that they have cracked hyperdrive actuation diode. Assuming Sodara's deserters will help the Wookiee feels he can repair everything else within a day. But without a new diode for the actuation field generator, the Falcon will never enter hyperspace again. We'll have to steal one from the Imperials, Han says. I'll see if Sodara can help. The ex-Imperial is less enthusiastic about the smugglers' plan. They are hunting us. They will be on full alert. Our force is pitiful in both number and armament. We may be safe from discovery, but to go seeking trouble, you cannot be serious. Before Han can argue the matter, a high-pitched whine echoes up the valley. Everyone has grown used to the occasional thunder of cracking and falling glacial ice, but this is an eerie new sound. Even Chewbacca stops working and reaches for his weapon. Han at first believes the drone to be the plaintive wail of some giant ice creature. But a few seconds of increasing volume and steady pitch convince him it is some sort of repulsor drive. Captain Solo, calls one of Sodara's men. A woman hails you over the emergency channel. The Corellian shrugs in response to Sodara's unspoken question and runs for the Falcon. When he reaches the vid screen, he is dumbfounded. Leia hails him. Han opens the transmission channel. Leia! Han! You're alive! We saw you go down. Are you safe? Of course. Being kidnapped is no big deal, she responds sarcastically. I am uninjured if that's what you mean. But we've got bigger problems than my abduction. How did you manage to attract a Star Destroyer? I didn't, the smuggler replies. The credit is all yours, Princess. Mine? Leia screams. Every time I turn my back, somebody tries to vibro-knife it. You're a dangerous man to know, Han Solo. You should have stuck with us like I said. Sleazy floor shows aren't my style, Leia says. And rescuing princesses isn't mine. This is the last. The transmission goes dead. Leia? No answer, just static. Leia? More static. Leia! The video display returns. Instead of Leia, it shows a small gray helmet with a full mask. Long red hair cascades from beneath the helmet. "We meet at last, Solo," the voice comes through an electronic translator. Han activates the artificial memory to record the conversation. "Are you Alfreda Goot? What do you want with Leia?" "I am Alfreda, and I will ask the questions. First, what is the condition of the Millennium Falcon?" "We're grounded, so I guess our little race is off." "Permanently. There are 2 companies of stormtroopers 30 kilometers from your position. They will find you sooner or later. What do you require to repair your vessel?" "Why are you helping us?" Han demands. "My interest is to beat the Falcon to Mos Eisley, not to destroy it." "I'd like to talk about your choice of destinations." "Mos Eisley," Alfreda insists. "I've got a little problem there. Ever hear of Jabba the Hutt? If you want to see your precious princess alive again, you will go to Mos Eisley. Now, what do you need to repair the Falcon?" Alfreda promises to return the next day with the diode. Although the smuggler trusts Alfreda less than he trusts Sodara, he has little choice except to rely upon her promise. Shortly after the transmission ends, Captain Sodara climbs into the Falcon's buried cockpit. The strange noise was a space yacht. Quite an ugly space yacht. "Do you know it?" Han asks hopefully. "No, it was shaped like a pear fruit, broad on the bottom and narrow on the top. I assume the transmission came from the yacht." The Corellian nods. He replays the portion of the conversation he recorded and tells the story of Leia's kidnapping. Sodara listens without emotion. At last, the Imperial captain says, "A strange incident. Leia is a senator from Alderaan? Know her?" "The Emperor's agents have placed a high price on her head. Don't even think of collecting," Han warns. Sodara smiles. "I also have a price on my head. Speaking of which, what's the big deal about your cargo?" Sodara hesitates. "I can trust your discretion?" "Absolutely," Han replies. "My men and I were to transport the prototype of a new compact cloaking device to the secret Imperial production laboratories on Rigoron. We decided to sell it to Pluvo 2-for-1 instead. Alas, we are unused to such scum. He double-crossed us and prepared an Imperial ambush. We have been looking for a safe port ever since." The smuggler whistles. "That took guts." Sodara nods. "Perhaps you can help us. We would gladly show our appreciation with a full share." "Maybe I can, but I have a race to win," Han says. "And maybe the price will be 5 full shares." 3, Sodara counters, "and we will help you with the race." 4. Done. Han smiles warmly as they shake hands. He would have settled for 3. The 2 spacers spend the next 36 hours working on the Falcon. Although some of the repairs are not pretty, they will hold until the ship reaches better facilities. When his mind is not fully occupied with a mechanical problem, Han puzzles over Alfreda Goot's true identity. She acts as though she knows him well, and he certainly finds it strange that she has risked an encounter with an Imperial Star Destroyer to aid him. There is the fact, too, that Leia did not seem worried about her own safety when they spoke. Although Han cannot deduce Alfreda's identity yet, he begins to fear less for Leia. As his fear subsides, his anger increases. The whole screwy race has the feeling of a practical joke gone sour. As he and Chewbacca are putting the finishing touches on the power flux coupling which had been damaged in Montori's rings, Alfreda's ship descends from the overcast sky. It hovers 20 meters above the glacier and opens a hatch. A small brown package falls out and strikes the snow. Then the yacht is gone. "Thanks a lot," Han yells after it. After one of his men retrieves the package, Sodara says, "Your gratitude may be premature." He gives the pilot a note that is attached to the diode. It reads, "Imperial Walker, 4 hours away." "Plenty of time," Han says, turning toward Chewie. "Right?" 2 hours and 15 minutes later, Han and Chewbacca finished installing the diode. The smuggler is already firing up the Falcon's repulsor lift drive as the last man boards. When the mighty engines gleam to life, they create a fair-sized lake in the crash furrow. A moment later, the Corellian freighter bursts from the snow and streaks toward space. As the Falcon reaches Montori's rings, Han studies the flight computer for signs of the Eradicator. A large object is moving along the edge of the inner ring at an unusual velocity. The pilot activates the nav computer astrogation program and asks Lieutenant Birdlow to monitor it. He and Chewbacca each climb into a laser cannon turret to get a better view of whatever is moving along the inner ring. It turns out to be a Sevora mining complex. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief, and Han returns to the cockpit to take the Falcon into hyperspace. Han and Chewbacca have been watching the Doppler-shifted streaks of starlight for 3 hours. They are in the last period of hyperspace before the next jump. The smugglers have nothing to do except watch the ship fly itself. Although the Falcon needs some maintenance, they feel uncomfortable working with so many eyes about. Besides, they have repaired the worst of the recent damage. Captain Sodara and the stormtroopers are polite, but Han senses that he has nothing in common with the Imperial deserters. The troopers spend their time sharpening their martial disciplines, or discussing what they will do after selling the cloaking device. He would not tell them as much, but Han suspects they will spend the rest of their lives dodging Imperial bounty hunters. I can't figure Leia, the Corellian says. He wants to talk, and Leia is the only subject he and Chewbacca have not talked to death. Just when I think she's a regular human being, she gets huffy and starts acting like a princess. Does she like us or not? Chewie grunts a response. It doesn't matter, Han repeats. That's easy for a Wookiee to say. You don't understand humans. Chewbacca is not in a talkative mood, but Han restrains himself for only 5 minutes. Maybe she just doesn't like Wookiees. The co-pilot snarls an indignant question. Lots of people don't like Wookiees, Han says. It's nothing personal. Her? What makes you think it's me she doesn't like? She probably got herself kidnapped just so I'd rescue her. Chewbacca growls, then falls silent. Something clicks in Han's mind. He stares out the viewport, barely aware of the emptiness he watches. An hour later, he says, I know who Alfreda Goot is. She's Leia. The look Chewie gives Han says he is crazy. Who's ever heard of Alfreda Goot? How would she have found us on Ord Mantell? But who but Leia would challenge me to a race? This crazy race is Leia's way of trying to prove she's as good as I am. Chewbacca shakes his head and returns to staring out the forward viewport. 10 hours later, everyone aboard the Falcon is happy to drop to sublight speeds. The beauty of the Aldospacian comet is legendary. Trapped between 2 stars of an otherwise unremarkable binary system, the comet is so spectacular that men risk death for a close look. Any pilot wishing to pass close has to fly a tightrope between its 2 stars. Overcompensating to escape one star's gravitational attraction often means plunging into the other. Han rechecks the course plotted by the nav computer. The quickest route to Tatooine runs right between the stars, through the comet's coma, a gaseous sphere 100,000 kilometers across. Buried somewhere inside the coma is a 10-kilometer chunk of dirty ice, rock, and metal, which they will probably not see unless they hit it. Han briefly considers flying around the entire system, but Leia or Alfreda will no doubt risk the shortcut. Han does not intend to be outdone by a woman, whatever her name. The comet currently hangs almost exactly between Aldo and Spock. Even from a distance of several tons of millions of kilometers, each star is the size of the Falcon and shines with an intensity that would dim a turbolaser blast by comparison. Most comets have 2 tails, a straight one with a fiery appearance and a glowing, slightly curved one. The Aldospacian comet has 4 tails, 2 straight and 2 curved. The straight, fiery tails shoot 250,000 kilometers in opposite directions from the coma. They end in stubby, mushroom-like caps. The straight tails are created when the solar wind passes through the coma and drags away certain ionized gases. Because the Aldospacian comet has 2 stars, it has 2 tails of ionized gases. The Corellian guesses that the unusual stubby tail caps are created when the solar wind of the opposite star forces the tail to curl back on itself. The glowing curved tails sweep away from the coma, also in opposite directions. They consist of dust particles so fine that the touch of starlight knocks them into space. Perhaps 500,000 kilometers from the coma, each tail turns back in a great arch and tapers to a narrow point that ends abreast of the coma. Now that I have seen such beauty, I would happily die, Sodara comments. You just may, Han says. He shifts his attention to plotting the safest route between the 2 stars. What he sees on the flight computer's vid screen concerns him more than the danger posed by the twin suns. A large wedge has appeared only 85,000 kilometers behind the Falcon. 2 smaller silhouettes have separated from the large one. It can only be a Star Destroyer dispatching TIE fighters. They followed us, Han yells. How did they do that? Sodara looks over the pilot's shoulder at the flight computer and curses. Then he points to the transmission actuation switch. It is in the on position again. I told you to fix that, Han yells at Chewbacca. Do I have to do everything myself? For a moment, the Wookiee looks as if he will tear Han limb from limb. His face quickly sags into depression, however, he moans his apology. At least the Eradicator's not coming after us, Han says. Yet. It will not, Sodara promises. Vellum will not risk his prize so close to the gravity wells of a double star, but I am certain those are his best pilots. The Corellian accelerates. The TIE fighters are much faster than his vessel, but if he can lure them into the comet away from reinforcements, the Falcon stands a good chance of winning the battle. As the freighter enters the comet's hazy dust tail, Sodara assigns 2 men to operate the gunwales. The 2 TIEs enter just behind the Falcon. Although the tail is not dense, its dust particles emit a brilliant, ghostly light. The ambient glare impairs Han's vision as badly as a dark room would have. It's like flying inside an immense illumination tube. TIE energy bursts flash past the Falcon every half second. Each bolt quickly dissipates, leaving a red streak of fluorescing dust in its wake. Han pays the spurts of light no attention. The tricky gravity wells of Aldo and Spock keep him too busy to worry about pot shots. The freighter bucks and gyrates wildly as Han fights to walk the tightrope between the 2 stars. "Hold your fire," Captain Sodara orders his men. "Until we reach a stable gravity plateau, you're only wasting energy." A few minutes later, the Falcon reaches the coma. Like the dust tail, it is a mass of glowing particles. Twisting colors leads generally ahead, although Han sees out of the coma easily enough. Looking deeper into it hurts his eyes. This relatively dense region is near vacuum by planetary standards, but it contains dozens of atoms per square centimeter. Each atom glows with every erg of energy it has absorbed from 2 suns. The ship ceases bucking. They have reached an area of equal gravitational pull between the 2 stars. "Time to fight," Han says, pulling into a tight loop. During the long hyperspace jump, Han, Chewbacca, and their guests drain 1 power cell from the Falcon's batteries. Keep track of the number of power cells they use during this adventure. If Han concentrates fire on 1 TIE fighter, put that in your comment. If Han splits his attention between both fighters, put that in the comment. So we've got 2 choices. Are we going to focus fire, or are we going to split fire? Put it down in the comments, and then come back next week to see what happens next. Also, don't forget, while this is the end of today's episode, I do have all sorts of great tabletop gaming content on the channel for you. So do check that out. Also, I do have links to social media and DriveThruRPG down below if you wish to follow us or support the channel in other ways. So, with that said, thank you so much for your time, and until next week, let's find out what our heroes will do. Thanks.